Okay, so let's have a look at this, guys. So behavior economics has become this big deal. People talk about behavior economics all over the world. Então, as pessoas estão falando de economia comportamental no mundo inteiro, and not only because of those Nobel Prize, right? Não apenas por causa dos prêmios Nobel que foram conferidos para pesquisadores nessa área, but also because some very important governments decided to adopt behavior economics in the process of developing new policies. Então, importantes governos do mundo todo começaram a adotar princípios de economia comportamental no desenho de políticas públicas. But the pioneering guys were this one here, right in front of you, the Behavioral Insights team. Okay, so what is this? You have an office with some very smart people, and these guys work for the British government. Então, juntaram lá um conjunto de neurocientistas, economistas comportamentais, psicólogos, falaram assim: how can we improve policy? Como é que a gente pode melhorar as políticas públicas no Reino Unido? Okay, so check out here on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see our objectives remain the same as they have always been. Nossos objetivos se mantêm os mesmos desde que a gente começou. First, we try to make public services more cost-effective and easier for citizens to use. Então, o custo-benefício das políticas tem que aumentar, ao mesmo tempo tem que ser mais fácil para o cidadão acessar. Just like Brazil, right? That's what happens all the time in Brazil. This is just the opposite of Brazil, unfortunately, guys. Aqui as nossas políticas são caras, comparadas com benefício. A maior parte das vezes a gente gasta muito para entregar pouco resultado. E o acesso do cidadão é cada vez mais difícil. So, these guys were going the opposite way of Brazil. It's like they were watching Brazil and saying, yeah, we don't want that. We want the opposite of that. É como se os caras estivessem olhando para o Brasil falando assim, nós queremos o oposto daquilo ali. Nós queremos políticas que custem menos, entreguem mais e que o cidadão tenha mais facilidade de acessar. Okay, so this is the first thing. The second thing, we have to improve outcomes by introducing a more realistic model of human behavior to policy. Então, a gente quer melhorar o resultado das políticas públicas, seja ela uma política de creches, seja ela uma campanha de vacinação, seja ela um combate de drogas, seja ela o que for. But, in order to get better results, we want to remember who is the citizen, how people actually behave, ok? Então, os caras fizeram aquilo que a economia comportamental faz. Assim, vamos parar de assumir que as pessoas são racionais, plenamente racionais, matematicamente racionais. Vamos desenhar políticas que ajudem as pessoas a tomarem a decisão certa. And the last thing, they wanted to enable people to make better choices for themselves. Então, aquela ideia do nudge, do empurrãozinho, ajudar as pessoas a fazerem melhores escolhas para elas mesmas. All right, let me see. I think there's someone coming in here. Just a second. Yes, okay. I have authorized one more fella. Okay, so those are very ambitious goals, right? São objetivos muito ambiciosos. We have to make public policy more cost-effective and easier for citizens to use. Custo-benefício melhor, mais fácil acesso para o cidadão. Improve outcomes by adopting a more realistic model of human behavior. Então, melhorar os resultados, passando a contar com o comportamento mais humano das pessoas e menos aquela racionalidade pura. And third, help people making better choices for themselves. Ajudar as pessoas a fazerem melhores escolhas para elas mesmas, all right? So, how did they do that? Well, it's not one way. You have like a set of tools. And those tools can be summarized with the letters M-I-N-D-S-P-A-C-E. Cada uma dessas letrinhas que vocês estão vendo aí representam, na verdade, uma dica, um truque para lidar melhor e desenhar políticas que sejam mais efetivas. All right? All of them are based on behavior economics studies, okay? Each and every one of these letters, well, each of them express one tool, one way to develop better policies and help people making better choices, ok? Cada uma dessas letrinhas é uma das ferramentas de como desenhar políticas mais efetivas e ajudar as pessoas a fazerem melhores escolhas. All right, so let's have a look at them, okay? Can you see here on the left-hand side, you have M, I, N. As you go down, M as in messenger, I as in incentives, N as in norms, D as default, S salience, P priming, A effect, C commitments, and E ego. All right? So you understood what we got here, right? É como se fosse um artifício mnemônico, um artifício de memorização. Cada uma das letrinhas é um dos recursos que são usados para melhorar a política. So let's have a look at them, and so we can try and understand how they work, okay? First one, messenger. Well, so what do you mean by that? O mensageiro. Well, at some politician that you dislike to talk about a certain policy, people will not hear, people will not act, and you may waste money on such a policy. Então, se você pegar um político que é detestado, nem precisa citar nomes aí, né? Não tá difícil. Um político que é detestado por uma grande parte da população. E esse cara vai lá e faz um anúncio de política pública. Muitas pessoas ou não acreditam, ou não aceitam, ou acabam não participando. All right, so the messenger matters. You have to try and find people who can communicate with your population. Você tem que buscar pessoas que realmente são admiradas, respeitadas e que conseguem comunicar com o seu cidadão. So it's just like if you could get like Anitta or Neymar, and these people come and say, look, kids shouldn't smoke. We still have many kids smoking in Brazil, and that's very worrisome. Então, se você pudesse pegar pessoas como a Anitta ou como Neymar para fazer campanhas contra, sei lá, o uso excessivo de álcool, contra fumar demais, ou começar a fumar muito cedo, ou uso de drogas. All right. If you watch Neymar on the TV, people stop and listen. Even though he's just a soccer player. I mean, he's not a genius. He's not a professor with extraordinary abilities, but he's someone that people stop to listen to. É uma pessoa que as pessoas param para ouvir. All right, so in the past, we had Pelé participating in vaccination campaigns. Lá no passado, a gente teve pessoas famosas. We had Ayrton Senna also participating in campaigns to help underprivileged people, vulnerable populations. A gente tem muitas pessoas que fazem esse papel. Who else? that model, Brazilian model, what's her name? Gisele Bündchen. Yeah, she was with the United Nations, and she was trying to to fight hunger, actually engaged in trying to promote better social conditions to our people, right? So yes, the messenger matters. So we have to pick the messenger very carefully. Otherwise, we can just waste money. Se eu coloco lá um determinado ministro da saúde ou um determinado presidente para falar de uma política, well, dependendo de alguns casos, pessoas podem até fazer questão de não participar por causa da rejeição que uma determinada pessoa tem. All right. So, pick your messenger carefully. That's a good tip, a good way to start a public policy. The second one, incentives. Well, I'm an economist, and some of you here in this class, you are also economists. So we know that people do respond to incentives. As pessoas, sim, elas de fato respondem a incentivos. Então, if I tell you like this, all right, if you come and participate in this sort of survey, we are going to give you a chance to schedule your exam the same week. Então, se você participar aqui dessa semana em que a gente está fazendo triagem, a gente vai marcar os exames no SUS no espaço máximo de até uma semana. Well, if you say something like this, every single person in the Brazilian population who needs exams will show up. Então, as pessoas reagem a incentivos. Se você precisar estimular as pessoas a se comportarem de uma maneira ou de outra, ofereça vantagem. Você não precisa oferecer dinheiro. You see, you are not bribing people. You are not trying to buy people. Você não está querendo comprar as pessoas ou suborná-las. But you can establish ways to stimulate people to do the right thing. Okay? All right, so never forget incentives, okay? If I tell you that in order to have an exam, you are supposed to show up in a line at 2 o'clock in the morning just to get a piece of paper, and maybe you're going to be able to schedule your exam for 6 months. Se eu te obrigar a entrar numa fila às 2 horas da manhã para tentar pegar uma senha, e com essa senha talvez você consiga agendar o seu exame para daqui a 6 meses, um exame de uma doença que você está precisando agora, well, if I do something like this, in practice, what I'm trying to do is to stimulate you for not participating. I'm trying to prevent you from getting your exam. I'm preventing you from taking care of your health. I'm kind of saying, forget it. You're just going to have to die if you're not going to get this exam. Just don't try. That's what I'm saying. Então, no Brasil, a gente faz o contrário. A gente cria um incentivo para as pessoas não participarem da política pública. This is terrible. But what these guys decided is to say, think about incentives. Think about ways to stimulate people to do the right thing. Okay? So incentives matter. Okay? They have to be taken into consideration. When we think norms, when you try to translate that to Portuguese, it becomes normas. But that's not what we are talking about. A gente está falando de normas sociais. A gente está falando de tabus. A gente está falando de estigma, de não querer parecer diferente. Okay? All right, so when we talk about norms, we're saying like, don't fight people's collective decisions. So let me give you an example. If I tell you like this, in order to get vaccination, it will be only on a Sunday afternoon. Se eu falo para você assim, ó, para você vacinar, só vai estar disponível no domingo de tarde. And then you say, come on, Sunday afternoon, why don't you leave it open through the whole weekend? Por que você não deixa o posto aberto no final de semana todo? Well, some people just don't think about this. They don't try to make easier. For example, many people in Brazil, during weekends, they have barbecue, they drink, they don't want to leave their homes. It's like the only moment that they have of leisure. Então, se você marca alguma coisa para é o único momento em que uma família está se dedicando a um tipo de lazer e tal, aquilo não vai dar certo. Same thing, for example, if you schedule some sort of important date in some sort of public policy for a day where you're going to have jogo da Copa, you have World Cups soccer games. A gente sabe que num dia de jogo da Copa, não adianta, ninguém vai aparecer. Você marca uma reunião, você marca uma campanha, você marca, se você quiser fazer qualquer... eu vou visitar uma comunidade. Que dia? No dia do jogo do Brasil. Oh, come on, my friend, this is not going to work, all right? Same thing with Carnival. Many times the same thing with the end of the year or the beginning of the year. So you have to think of your policy and trying to find when is the best way to talk to people. How can I get to people as they're just like in a convenient way? Como é que eu consigo chegar com uma política de uma forma conveniente? Let me give you another example of this, okay? Many times when you go to take trains or subways, quando você vai para um metrô ou para um trem de superfície, que em algumas cidades do Brasil você tem o sistema de transporte de metrô, people have to wait some time before they get in board, right? They get in the train. So some health secretary of some municipalities, they go to the train stations and they measure people's blood pressure. Então fica lá uma barraquinha com enfermeiras, um médico, e fica medindo a pressão arterial das pessoas, enquanto elas estão esperando para embarcar no trem. All right, you see, this way, you understand how is people behavior, and you say, okay, let me try and get to the right moments, and let me not fight with the citizen, or take him out of his way. Let me just be convenient and provide the service the most convenient way possible. You may look at me and say, oh, Luiz, we are so far away from this in Brazil. Eu falei, exatamente, gente. No Brasil, a gente ainda tá no tempo que a pessoa, quando é atendida no SUS, ela fica agradecida. Falar, obrigado, doutor. Puxa, nossa, se não fosse o senhor. I've been studying health policy in Brazil for some time. Eu tenho estudado políticas públicas de saúde no Brasil por algum tempo já. And the reports that we get, I mean, they are terrible. O tipo de relato, de números que a gente tem, de relatórios que a gente consegue levantar, são muito ruins. O serviço é caro, é ruim, atrasa, falha. Sometimes people have a schedule an exam or to see the doctor, and when they come, they just get the message, oh no, sorry, it won't be today. You have to reschedule. We are, in Brazil, we are way, 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 way behind the curve in these respects, okay? Unfortunately. But then again, let's think what other people in the world have been doing, okay? At least we can see what works some other places. O quarto ponto, the fourth point is default. Well, what is default? Remember when you go to buy a sandwich and then you see like, we have this combo. It's like one soft drink, you have like a specific kind of sandwich, and you have some potato chips or something like that. So it's like a pre-established choice for you. É uma escolha já mais ou menos pré-desenhada, arranjada para você. When people do this sort of stuff, it works. Many of us, we have difficulty in making many choices. A maioria de nós tem dificuldade em fazer muitas escolhas quando as opções são grandes. Então, quando você vai lá e oferece uma escolha padrão, that's the message for default. Default is like the standard. So defaults may help a lot. The classic example of this we discussed right in the beginning of the class. I don't know if you remember this, but I'm going to try and remind you. There were like two countries in Europe, Austria and Germany, and they are neighbors, right? They are just along each other. They have similar cultures. They have a common history. They speak the same language. They have the same sort of living standards. Então, dois países muito parecidos, com a mesma história, com a mesma língua, com a mesma cultura, de alguma forma, Áustria e Alemanha. But then you have one of these countries, to become a donor, you have to do nothing. If you were born in this country, you were an organ donor. Se você nasceu naquele país, você já é um doador de órgãos. In the other country, you have like, if you were born in this country, you are not an organ donor automatically. You have to go there and make a choice. So it's just the opposite default. O padrão é o oposto. Num dos países você nasceu, você é doador de órgãos, e se quiser você pode pular fora. No outro país você nasceu, você não é doador de órgãos. E se quiser ser, você precisa dizer que quer. So you change the default. You change the standard. Você inverte o padrão. And then people, they just participate. They say, okay, yeah, everybody's doing that, so I'm going to do that too. So sometimes it looks like a simple thing, and people may look and say, this is not going to work. But guess what? It does work. If you provide people with good standard choices, like the default choices, people will not diverge. Many times we will accept things that were somehow prepared for us. Então, esse tipo de política funciona, se você criar um padrão. Let me give you another example of this. Okay, so you had a child, and people tell you, oh, your child needs vaccines. All right. So when you go to the vaccination post, people will be there and they say, okay, you have this tríplice viral. That's the one your kid needs. Então é um padrão que você tome uma vacina que combate 3 vírus. Você não pode falar assim, oh, I want the first one, but not the second and the third. No, you can't. It's the standard. So somehow people have made that choice for you. And guess what? When people go there, they say, yeah, go ahead. Get my daughter or my son this shot, the standard one, the one that every kid gets. Então as pessoas vão lá e aceitam o padrão. Falam, o padrão é tomar a vacina para esses 3 vírus. All right, so it works, okay? We have to think and prepare good default choices. The 5th one, salience. We have to draw people's attention to the importance of your policy. So let me give you another example of this, okay? Let's talk about women cancer. Okay, one of the most common sorts of cancer among women is the breast cancer, right? My students here know about that, right? Eu acho que aqui a gente está num ambiente de pessoas muito bem informadas, então eu acho que todo mundo aqui sabe disso. Um dos cânceres mais prevalentes entre as mulheres no Brasil e no mundo é o câncer de mama. So how do we fight that? Well, we have to figure out, we have to find out about any sort of cancer right at the beginning. In order to do that, you have to go through exams. So you have to tell people how to make exams on themselves, right? Você tem que ensinar as pessoas como fazerem o autoexame. Okay, but then again, how can you emphasize that? How can you highlight that? How can you tell people so that they will remember? They will be aware of that. There are many ways. Então, quais os caminhos que você vai fazer para chamar a atenção das pessoas sobre isso? A saliência, salience, it's the way you draw attention to that. So somehow you could use like clever marketing campaigns. Você pode usar campanhas publicitárias inteligentes, às vezes explorando um pouco o humor, às vezes explorando um pouco o autocuidado no sentido da saúde, o cuidado da mãe com a filha, o ensinamento de uma mãe para uma filha. You have to draw people's attention. You have to highlight the importance of doing something. Okay, so the way you make this policy or this behavior more salient will impact the way people behave. Now, the next one is the controversial one, okay? Priming, okay? Let me talk about this for just a minute, because this is kind of a strange one. Okay, so what is priming? Is when you try to influence people's behaviors with subconscious cues. Quando você começa a tentar ajudar, ainda que seja para ajudar as pessoas, mas você quer influenciar o comportamento delas de formas subconscientes. Well, I mean, this, from an ethical perspective, in my opinion, it is complicated. Eu não gosto muito dessa ideia. But sometimes people do that. So let me give you a simple example of this, okay? You want kids to eat salad. You want kids to eat healthy food, right? Você quer que as crianças comam salada, que as crianças comam comidas na merenda, no seu dia a dia, mais saudáveis. So one smart way to do that is to choose colorful food. Quando você seleciona legumes, verduras que são mais coloridas, as crianças pequenininhas ficam curiosas pela cor e elas têm mais facilidade em começar a comer aquilo. But then you can say, oh, come on, kids, they know nothing about this. So this is not unfair, but I have to tell you, I mean, you're using subconscious tricks, right? Você está usando truques subconscientes. A criança não percebe que ela está sendo, entre aspas, manipulada. It is for their own sake, no question about it. But you are kind of, manipulating choice. And people who are the object of your policy, they don't know what's going on. So, in my opinion, this is, you have to be careful. From an ethical perspective, you have to be especially careful when they talk about priming, ok? Priming é como se fosse você colocando ali uma ideia na cabeça da pessoa sem ela nem perceber, ok? All right. The next one, affect. Oh, this is obvious, right? If you want to help mothers being better mothers, taking better care of their kids, you can explore the ideas of affection in a commercial, for example. Então, se você quiser fazer uma política para ajudar as mães a amamentarem mais tempo, você apelar para o que o leite significa de amor, significa de cuidado, apelar para a ideia de sentimentos, well, it's for their own good, And people do that all the time. Let me give you a more trivial example of this. Um, People sell all sort of stuff just by showing puppies. No marketing, as pessoas conseguem vender automóvel, conseguem vender celular, conseguem vender, sei lá, cadeira, só mostrando um cachorrinho bonitinho do lado. I mean, they touch people's hearts and somehow they open up, a different bandwidth of contact, of dialogue. Ao mostrar uma imagem de um cachorrinho bonitinho, de um animal de estimação bonitinho, um marqueteiro inteligente pode acessar uma atenção que muitas vezes não conseguiria. So yeah, affection, well, it works. So if you want to improve policy, sometimes you have to appeal to that too, especially when we're talking about mothers and their kids and things like this, okay? Then we have commitment and ego. So let me just finish this thing saying commitments. Well, if you don't trust who is providing a policy, you may not show up. Se alguém chega assim e fala assim, eu vim aqui fazer uma política de atendimento dentário na comunidade. If people think that you're going to show up once and never come back, people don't participate. Especially if we're talking about teeth, right? I mean, most of us are already afraid of dentists, right? A maioria de nós já tem um certo receio com dentista, né? Tem medo que vai doer e tudo mais. So if you don't trust that this is going to be like a regular thing, that you're going to have the choice to make a whole treatment, you may not even participate. Você chega lá, monta uma tenda, começa a atender, a fazer análise da boca das pessoas, começa a fazer limpeza, fazer pequenos tratamentos ali, intervenções simples, mas as pessoas não vão participar se elas acharem que aquilo ali é uma coisa que vai ser uma vez e nunca mais volta. So somehow you have to try and gain people's trust in order to establish a successful policy. Priming, well, it looks like nudge, but notice this, okay? In nudge, many times things are very, very evident. Remember the stairs in the subway, in the German subway? Aquelas escadarias no metrô da Alemanha, que tinha lá a pista de corrida e tal, imitando a pista de corrida, a pista olímpica. So, this is not subconscious. This is evident. People know exactly that someone is trying to help them. In priming, no. You're talking about subconscious tips, right? Cues. So it's kind of ethically questionable, right? So let me give you another example of this. Let's suppose that I want people to exercise more. So when they come to class, or I don't know, when they come to the library, I go there and I establish a higher temperature for the air conditioning. Se eu quisesse que as pessoas não ficassem tanto tempo paradas, eu vou lá e aumento a temperatura de um ambiente. So, you see, this is not exactly a fair way to deal. I mean, you're trying to help, but you're trying to do something from behind, you know, like not transparent or anything like this. So yeah, priming is kind of a more worrisome technique, okay? All right, and the last one is ego. And ego is a huge thing. Come on, guys. It doesn't matter who you talk about. If you're talking like a priest or a nun or the reverend in your church, or every one of us, we are we have this vanity, we have ego, we want to feel good about ourselves. And if you're trying to do that for the good of a population, no problem. So one thing that people do is to value or to give public recognition to people who make good acts, right? Então, uma das maneiras é você dar reconhecimento público para assistentes sociais, para pessoas que se superaram em algum tipo de atendimento à população. Então, não, mas ele está mexendo com a vaidade da pessoa. Yes, sure, we are. But I mean, it is for a good purpose, right? As long as you're trying to promote well-being and health and you are not harming anyone, yes, you could use ego, people's ego, to promote good. And if you stop and think about this, the great majority of charity we have in the world is vanity based, is based on vanity. A grande maioria dos atos de caridade dos seres humanos é baseado em vaidade. So, it is the truth. We are like that. So somehow we can explore that for the good of populations, of communities, okay? All right, so you see, we have like a toolbox, é uma caixinha de ferramentas. Now, let me see if you guys can give me, let me give you an example of public policy, and let's see if you guys can see some of these things there, okay? So let me give you an example of policy, and you tell me which of those tools are in place, okay? So let's start with this one, Bolsa Família. Everyone knows what Bolsa Família is. The current name of that is Auxílio Brasil, but yeah, you guys know how it works and everything else. So which of those elements is present in Bolsa Família? Okay? One of these: messenger, incentives, norms, defaults, salience, priming, affect, commitments, and ego. So think about Bolsa Família. How does Bolsa Família works? It works like this. You get your kids to school, and as long as kids are in school, you get some money at the end of the month, okay? And then you use this money to buy food. Okay, so we know what Bolsa Família is. As I just described, which of those elements you think it is present in a program like Bolsa Família? Qual desses elementos que vocês estão vendo aí na tela de vocês que você acha que está presente num programa como Bolsa Família?
Incentives.
Yeah. Well, the first one, yeah, incentives, you're right there. It is an incentive. As long as you keep kids in school, you're going to get money. So it's obviously an incentive mechanism. Now, someone has typed in the chat here saying affect. Well, check out the name of the program, guys. Bolsa.
We have norms.
Yeah, but think about this element first, Thiago. We have like Bolsa Família. The name of the program is talking to you about like one thing that is sacred to everybody. You know, like família is, for many of us, família is the most important thing. So when you get the name of this thing as saying Bolsa Família, you're trying to convey a message very clear, you know, like you're dealing with affect. This is something that, I mean, it's sacred for all of us. It's deeply emotional to all of us. Norms, so we do what other people do, right? So you see people taking their kids to school and getting the money at the end of the month. You go there and say, oh, I want to participate in Cadastro Único. I also want to register for Bolsa Família. Yeah, it's okay. It's a good deal. Yeah, we are exploring norms. People do behave like that, like socially, collectively. If you in a community and just a few months are accessing Bolsa Família, it's just a matter of time till the other ones look and say, oh, I want that too. I want to participate. So people are influenced by what other people do. Yes, it is. Letter C for commitments. Yes. So the words here saying we seek to be consistent with our public promises and reciprocate acts. Então, o comprometimento é assim. Quando a gente fica grato a alguém por alguma coisa, a gente tende a tentar ser recíproco, a devolver aquela gratidão, a pagar de volta, a achar que a gente tem um compromisso. So, if people are coming to your community and they are trying to give kids dentist treatment, right? And if you don't participate and they show up and they keep there waiting, somehow you may feel bad. You say, oh, when my kids were having like toothache, I took my kids there and now no one is taking anymore, but I feel like I have to. I see that we have a deal. I have to take my kids there, even it is just for them to be okay. Oh, they say, oh yeah, it's okay. We just checked, your kid's mouth is fine. Então a pessoa se sente obrigada, porque existe um compromisso ali daquela parte de participar, de levar um serviço. A pessoa também se sente obrigada a falar, não, então eu vou participar. All right, so sometimes we can explore that too. Okay, guys, so you can see that we're talking about very important stuff here, right? I couldn't move away of this thing without going back. Let me just show you some more slides here about how this thing works. So the first thing is to realize if you are feeling like uneasy about this, remember, governments from all over the world, they already manipulate or influence people's behavior. If you have like fines, if you have like regulation, you have taxation, the government is already trying to influence your behavior. Fala assim, ó, dirigiu acima da velocidade, você ganha uma multa. So this is influencing people's behavior. But I mean, those are more violent ways to do. And in MINDSPACE, you could try and get the same benefits, avoid speeding, without having to impose fines. So let me give you an example of this. Em vez de cobrar uma multa para quem dirige rápido, você manda uma foto para a casa dele, mostrando um acidente que aconteceu na mesma região em que ele dirigiu com excesso de velocidade. So they say, okay, this is not a fine. This is just a warning. This picture is from the same place in which you were speeding some weeks ago. So think about it. You see what you're using there? You're using salience. You're highlighting, you're exposing more easily the consequences of people's acts. Então, é uma maneira de intervenção menos agressiva do que simplesmente aplicar uma multa. All right. We have to stimulate debate and we have to stimulate participation of society in general, okay? In order to make these things work, it can't be like just a bureaucrat in a seat in Brasilia deciding what to do. Those policies, they have to be discussed. They have to be tried first, and they have to be measured to see if they are getting the results that were expected, tá? Então, a abordagem MINDSPACE não é simplesmente, tive uma ideia, vou manipular as pessoas desse e daquele jeito. So, you have to talk to people. You have to debate. It has to be openly discussed, okay? That's the right way to deal behavior economics, okay? So the example here, the first one, a 20% reduction in speed after people, rather than sending a fine, they started convincing people how dangerous that was. There's this very important example too, the third one. Let me tell you this story. This is fantastic. Energy bills. So you created a visual scheme to tell people how much more energy they were spending compared to their neighbors. Então, a cada mês, em vez de você receber simplesmente sua conta de luz, você recebia a conta de luz e vinha assim uma barrinha de verde até vermelho, verde, amarelo até vermelho, mostrando como que você está na comparação com a média dos seus vizinhos. Think about it. It's just information. I mean, it's private information. You're not exposing anyone's name. You're just saying, look, you are doing much better than your neighbors. If you get this message, you feel like, yeah, keep going. We're doing fine. Now, if you get the opposite message, right, showing the red bar there, você está gastando muito mais que seus vizinhos, you're going to ask yourself, what's going on? What am I doing wrong? Okay, so just because they added this information to their energy bills, people reduced energy consumption in 8%. So it's very cheap intervention and it's very effective one. Can you guys see this example? Pessoal, esse exemplo eu acho que é fantástico. Você coloca lá uma informação na sua conta de luz, comparando o seu consumo com o dos seus vizinhos. Se você receber um elogio porque você está consumindo mais que seus vizinhos, você fica estimulado a continuar a fazer. Se você receber um vermelhinho lá, porque você está gastando muito mais que seus vizinhos, você vai querer saber por quê. Eu sou otário? Eu estou rasgando dinheiro? O que está acontecendo aqui na minha casa? In both cases, you try to reduce energy consumption. All right, so this is MINDSPACE. It works, okay? All right, so this was the thing that I couldn't leave behind. Thank you for participating in this session.